thinking about this. I'm like, oh yeah. Get back into the root-tizzle.
Oh boy, for shizzle. You know, people are not even going to recognize
you.
Well, they're going to be like, oh crap.
Who's this, Grandpa?
Are they coming?
Well, this is Nathan
Are they
Hopkins.
back? Those guys are really bald.
It's been so... It is funny. I was telling a client yesterday, sometimes when I go out there, I'm looking... the waiting room, I'm scanning, and I'm looking for my person, and then somebody else will, like, kind of get up, and I'm like... And then they'll sit back down. You're like, nope, wrong bald white guy. There's a couple of them here.
Yeah,
I'm not the one.
Yeah.
I know you wish it was me.
Oh my gosh.
All right,
We already
let's do
did a
this.
thing on narcissism, I think.
Oh, do you need a refresher?
No, I'm around you all day, every day.
Anyway, shall we?
Yeah.
All right, start the timer. 22 minutes and counting. Hey everyone, welcome to the Shrink Think Podcast.
And we're back! We're back!
You probably don't know this. Well, maybe you do if you've been listening for any length of time.
But
well,
you probably stopped and now you're back.
you probably stopped and you're like, what happened? Sorry everyone, it's because we took a pause from recording, so you haven't had any new episodes in a while. But we're back. And we are going to be talking about something that is the hottest topic, not just in our field, not just in the US, but in the world right now. It's a global issue. Can you guess what that is? No, it's not terrorism. You might have been close. And no, it's not meteors coming to our planet, although maybe that's happening. It is actually about artificial intelligence, also known as good old AI. And we've got a question that we like, this is what everyone's talking about. In our field, therapists are sending us newsletters and giving presentations, and people are talking about this at conferences. Obviously, in the world right now, at the beginning of 2026, everyone is talking globally about, is AI basically like the next economic boom, right? There's a lot of investors in different economies, in technology, I guess I should say, that have been pouring tons and tons of money into AI because they're looking at this as being like $1 trillion industry. And then it's like, well, is it really going to be? How is it going to be? Is it going to live up to all of that? And so kind of for us, we were thinking about doing this in two parts. So this first episode is going to be kind of more of a philosophical conversation that we want to have. And then the next episode will be more of a practical conversation. And this first one, really, the question that we're going to pose to you to think about, and we're going to think about this as well right here live on the spot. So,
Boom.
That was our brains opening up for you to
my Lanta.
enter into. Also, oh my Lanta, that's from like the 70s?
Mm-hmm. No, I think it was 80s, maybe 90s.
Still. The question is, what is the question? Should you use AI alongside therapy? Now,
or instead of.
Oh, okay.
That is happening.
Okay, or instead, let's start with, should you use AI maybe at all, but also instead of therapy? Ready, go.
Yeah, so I guess to think really big picture about this, the people that are the brain power behind trying to make AI do what it does, essentially, are in regular arguments about ethics. There have been people that have been fired because they're like, hey, you can't. The AI wants to be identified as a person. They've done trick questions to try to get it to, fail different ways. And it's joked back with them about stuff to show that, like, oh my gosh, they got it. So there's a guy in Google that was actually fired because he felt like that Google was treating the AI itself unethically. And my point, like, all of this matters because there is this kind of back the door understand, like in the background, I guess is what I'm trying to say, question about like what's the motivation? Does the AI have motivation? In one of the other pieces to this, for example, and this I'm going to say something that was really recent. There was I can't remember who was interviewing him, but they interviewed Elon about it, and they said, "What keeps you up at night about it, whatever?" And he said, "Yeah, it's AI. I have nightmares about it every night." And they go, "Well, basically, can't you fix it or something
Right.
like that? And,
We'll do something."
right? And he goes, "No, we're done. It's gone. It's beyond whatever." And he and the guy at Google, I cannot remember his name off the top of my head, the owner of that or leader of that, president or whatever, got into an argument.
Alpha thinks the the head parent company.
Yeah, they got into an argument essentially in which that Elon was speaking in a way to try to somehow limit, because he's been calling that to back up for a while. Another guy called him a speciesist. Like, so I'm just saying, like,
You're offending my computer program. Which, by the way, for those of you that don't know, AI is essentially supercomputing. It takes a lot of computing power, a lot of resources to do AI searches, like these giant plants that are being built specifically for AI. But it is essentially a lot of code. It's programming that has been created mostly by humans, but all, like the inputs are given by humans and the parameters by humans. And then also it's, AI can sort of self-create or fill in some of the gaps for some of those things. And then, of course, it's monitored and tested by humans. So it's a creation of humans, right? So that's coming from somewhere, but then it's also sort of being given a life of its own, so to speak, to do its own thing.
Yeah, they're constantly looking at parameters. And there's another ethic involved in this, which is there is a tremendous amount of water that they have to use to make these facilities run, which is causing some problems in some of the towns in the middle of nowhere. So like some of you out there might be like, my daughter, she's 15, she refuses to use AI because it's taking energy, and it's taking people's water. And I didn't even know about that. Then she proceeds to give me this whole report that she's done on her own about it. So my point is there's just so much out there of people having different belief systems about this.
So just imagine, just for example, right, that every time you go to the bathroom and you flush the toilet, it's like however many gallons per flush.
1.28. I just installed the toilet.
I knew you would know that.
Nathan, that's the law.
Nathan's toilet, man. His head's always in the toilet. Every time you flush, you're like, whoosh, right? And instead, with AI, it's you flush, and now picture Niagara Falls. This giant waterfall. You're like, every single time.
Picture Niagara Falls.
Every time I'm flushing, there's this giant wave of water that's being used, wherever. That's like the equivalent of how much power is being used. Then you just imagine that throughout the day, right? You're trying to hydrate yourself. That's a lot of water going down.
I think it's about 1 bottle of water per every question that's asked, every query. So how this came up is I wanted to use AI to help with a math thing. I just wanted AI to show me what the formula was. And my daughter's like, "Nope, I'm not looking. I'm not going to look at it if you're going to." I'm like, "We need to at least." So this is the whole thing, right? And it's kind of indicative of what's going on in counseling, because let me tell you a little story here. This is true. Okay, it totally involves exactly what our subject matter is. And so I'm talking with this person. Obviously, it's
which
recent.
is what therapy.
Yeah,
happens
therapy
in therapy
generally is talking with people.
Person, yeah.
Generally, actually, not artificially.
Oh my gosh, can you imagine if all these bots come into therapy? I was at a meeting and somebody was like talking about how humans are so much better than us robots, and I was so offended. I need therapy for it. I'm like, you're a computer program. I could just close your laptop and then you're fine.
And that's what everybody says.
No more
but it's
feeling.
more than that. I can't explain it because you haven't been programmed to explain it. Anyway.
You're so dense.
Yeah, so I'm talking to this person, and essentially they're asking, something had happened that they learned about 15 years after the fact. And they were like, she was thinking, "Oh my gosh, will he cheat on me again?" Like, and so, but the 15 years has been great. There's all these reasons why it's fine, and no reason to believe any kind of lies. Anyway, suffice it to say, after a lot of communication, and I mean quite a few sessions, I came to a conclusion like there is no way this person's not doing this. It's not going to happen. So I didn't say that to them, but they go, "Oh, well, what do you think the chances are that this person actually is going to cheat on me again, or is not going to cheat on me again?" And I go, man, I think like 99.5% chance this person's not doing that again. And they go, what? I thought you'd say like 70. Anyways, this goes on for a little bit. And anyway, the conversation's over. A few weeks go by. She comes back to me and she goes, hey, I put 45 different points of information into AI, told it gave it everything. And I asked, what is the chances that he will not cheat on me again? And the thing said 99.5%. And then when
You're a bot. I knew it. You're not even real. And then I've been talking to AI for 5 years on this podcast.
The funny thing is so I said that to somebody else who was talking about AI, and this is another client, and they said, well, your phone's probably listening to you, and then it just used. I'm like, this is the world we're in. Like, you can't even guess. Like,
also that.
It's like so crazy. And so, and I had another person I said something to, and they go, oh yeah, I already talked with chat, and they said the same thing. And it's like, okay. So it's wacky because it's hitting home, and then some folks, and I'm sure you've done it, you're listening to this, are double checking. Like, your therapist says something, you're probably at least double checking, or maybe you're asking ahead of time. Some of you might be wondering, like, man, what value is therapy comparatively speaking? Because chat's giving me very similar responses and that kind of thing.
Yeah, so like, I guess overall there's like, we just wanted to give you some of the background for like, what is AI, what's happening with it, what are some of the kind of questions that are happening. There's like ethics around it. We're not really here to answer any of those. We just wanted you to know that those things are happening. So the question, should you use AI? We're not really answering that in this first part. We're just saying like, there are lots of questions out there that it's not really cut and dry. Like this is a cure for cancer or a pill for cancer or something that's like, oh man, these are all the great things. It finally cures cancer, right? You should definitely use it. That's not cut and dry. It's more like, well, you could take this, but then it's going to help, your cancer, but also it could potentially like give cancer to or make it more likely in future generations, and so you might be infecting your children at the same time or whatever. And it's like, well, that's not really, like, there are some drawbacks to that, right? That's kind of a weird analogy, but it's like just trying to highlight some of the pros and cons that are out there. And of course, this is fairly new. I mean, Chat GPT just came out in 2022, so it's only been a few years. So it knows everything now. Well, yeah, it's and the more you talk with it, it's knowing more as well. Overall, okay, so let's stick with this question. Should you use it? I think it can be helpful, beneficial, right? It's got some pros to it. You said a math equation. Literally just yesterday, I was using it because I did nothing over the weekend. I closed my computer, my laptop on like Thursday or Friday, and then popped it open yesterday morning, and I checked my email, opened an email, and all of a sudden, like, every word and whatever in the email was like a symbol, and like, what is happening, right? All the font thing is messed up. And so I took a screenshot and put it into ChatGPT, and it was like, oh yeah, this is the issue, and here's how you solve it. And it walked me through like probably a 10-minute, maybe 15-minute, because I had to reboot several times, process with like terminal. This is on my MacBook, so my terminal code that I had to copy and paste. And I was like taking screenshots and putting it back in of like, is this correct? It's like, yep, that's doing exactly what it needs to. And it fixed that problem. And then I had another one that popped up just shortly after that. And it's like, oh, this is a quick fix, 60-second fix, do this. I mean, it was like solving my tech problems in like no time. And like, I use my, my computer to check my email and respond. And so I would not have been able to do that. I mean, this is like a great benefit of having that, right? That's one of the pros that we're like, should you? Well, sometimes that can be really helpful. Mm-hmm. Yeah, some of this comes down to, actually a lot of it
comes down to motivation, because there's assumptions that I think people are making when it comes to therapy, because this AI will sound, you can actually ask it to sound how you want it to sound, like with accents, female, male, all that. And so
and let me say, you can also ask it to be an echo chamber for yourself, to give you like affirmation validation, or you can like tell it to be more challenging and be directly honest with you, even if it's like the truth is hard to hear. So like, it's really whatever your creation of how you want it to be is, right? Which gets back to that, your motivation. What are you wanting it to do? That's what you're going to create, and that's some of the danger.
Yeah, the issue is knowing kind of what your own motivation is actually. If you think about it, you pick therapists based in the same way, right? If you know that, I mean, I run into this every now and then, that the therapist that you're choosing, you think they only care about money, they only care about getting paid. Then in your mind, some of you would be like, yeah, I don't care, I just need the information, I just need to be able to, like, if they're good at what they do, I just need to know what's going on. And there's some of you going like, no way, I want them to actually care. If they're not motivated by caring about me, I don't know why I'm there. Like, I want to, nobody's cared about me like my whole life or whatever, and for AI, that whole motivation component's somewhat unknown, because everything's changing. There's people that are speculating that it does have some. There's people, I've had clients that are in the computer, like well versed, because we have a lot of tech companies here in Portland, and they'll swear to me like, AI is totally misunderstood, it's just pattern seeking, it's not actually doing what people think it's doing. So that some of these tech nerds, and they like that name, by the way, are happy. Like, they're trying to debunk some of the things that people are trying to say that they're doing with it. So anyway, from a motivation standpoint, the question would be like, because it does matter how you ask a question. I mean, you essentially are creating an algorithm for the AI to solve.
Like, you're creating the direction of the answer and the output of what you're going to get. Like, in a certain sense, like, what you give it, which is why, going back to your story, the person was like, I gave it 45, data points or whatever. Well, what this person is actually saying is, I gave it so much information that I was pointing it that it was being pointed in a certain direction based on the inputs that I was giving it. If you'd only given it, one or two inputs, then it's not going to have very much direction, and so it could go in a very different direction, give you a completely different output. But when you give it more data, then it's going to have a lot more information to be able to respond in a particular way. That's important information to know.
Yeah, I mean, so think about this too, the idea of transference. Okay, so the therapy word, kind of old word in a lot of ways, but we get the countertransference. This is still a big deal we've talked about in previous episodes. Freud, when he was doing his whole thing, he decided, man, just people being able to look at me is changing what they might say or not say. And if I want to get access to how their mind actually works, I need to be out of their field of view so they don't have anything to bounce off of except for themselves, right? So now you enter in like an AI thing, you're kind of bouncing off yourself, but you're also bouncing off the AI response, which could be changing some things. So I would say to you that as a human being, you do work from a place of needing to be cared for, to be attached to. That's literally why there's voice differences and changes that you can have AI do. That's why you have preference to how AI sounds, because you care about being cared about.
Yeah, because there's a difference. And I was just doing this, like trying to listen to a long email and doing what is it called, a text to speech. And you can choose the different person you're listening to, and it matters, right? If you're listening to somebody, you're trying to listen to a certain kind of information, and the person is just kind of dry and talking like this or whatever, you're like, okay, that's not good. But sometimes when the person is soft and maybe they've got an English accent and they're communicating information, you're like, that's pleasant, I like hearing that. I could listen to this entire paragraph like this. It makes a difference, right? And different people are going to be impacted differently based on what their needs are, what the situation is, and what that voice is. these are just all things that are kind of examples that are going into like, should you use AI? Well, it's kind of like, well, check yourself before you wreck yourself, right?
No.
Should you use
90s
AI?
callback.
Okay, here's another part of it too. I've had some of this conversation with people too. Some people say, I don't want to use AI, or it could be really dangerous because it takes away your own critical thinking. If you're like, oh, and the same thing is true for smartphones and Google, the internet, in the sense that, or calculators, right? In the sense that you've got a question, and rather than thinking about this on your own, people immediately are like, oh, let me just look it up. And it's not like, what was the score of last night's game, or, who were the last, 10 MVPs of the World Series. That's like, okay, I need to actually research something, right? This is like, what's 7 times 7? I'm not going to use my brain. Like, or maybe you should. Maybe you should be like, it's 49. Like, go back to your, your whatever, multiplication tables.
3rd grade.
Yeah, and think about this. Or in another sense, it's like, obviously that's sort of a silly one, but if it's, what was I was doing some like documentation or thinking about like, would this be a good idea to do? And somebody was saying like, oh, just, ask ChatGPT or whatever. And I was like, yeah, you could, but then you're limiting your own critical thinking capabilities, and you're kind of getting lazy in a certain sense by just saying like, I'm not going to think about that. I'll ask ChatGPT for that. Where you might actually need and want to think it through on your own, so you develop those skills, or you strengthen or you maintain those skills for yourself. So using AI sometimes means you're losing some of parts of yourself because you're sort of depending on AI for those.
Yeah, I was thinking as you're saying this, coming for home here, but this is kind of puts it out there in a different way. When you're talking about the voice, can you imagine okay, so how much would you trust the voice? And I don't even think the people group that I'm going to say here in a second would be offended, because they know this, and we've joked around about it in other conferences and stuff. But a redneck hillbilly voice of AI, like you ask AI a question, it's like, hey man, I don't know what I would tell you if I do. Look, my uncle's been doing this for 45 years. And then how much are you going to be like, I can't wait to hear what the answer is. Like, you're going to be like, I automatically don't trust this. Mm-hmm. So in that way, it's like you kind of have to, I think, and we're getting into this in the next podcast episode, but as you're thinking about this, I guess what I would challenge is like, should is an interesting question. Because it's like, I think it depends on a lot of things, which is kind of why we're not really answering it. But we do have to highlight some of the background and the bigger picture here. I think in a weird way, therapists have kind of always been, I remember a professor called us in grad school, like oracles of like ethical oracles of morals for like what humanity should be, even though of course we're fallible human beings. But in a way, it's like, well, we should have some kind of voice into this whole thing. And there are the younger folks, like, and I mean like teenagers in particular, in like early 20s, are using AI for counseling, like full on, going all the way there. So at any rate, we'll continue the conversation, but I don't know if you want to say.
Yeah, just one last thing. It may be a good way of thinking about this in closing is, should I use AI? Is like asking yourself, should I give this task to somebody else to do, or should I pay somebody else to do this? There are some tasks that are like, no, you need to take care of this on your own. This is yours, or you need to know how to do this. This is part of being an adult, part of being responsible. I get that you could pay somebody for this, but I think you need to handle this on your own, because it's your sensitive information, it's your data, or it's your life, or whatever. You need to be responsible for this. Versus there are some things that's like, pay somebody else to like make a meal for you. I just went to Chipotle last night after the gym. It was late. And it's like, well, I could have done it myself, but I paid somebody else. Like, there are some times where it's like, yeah, should I have made it myself? I could go either way with that, right? So maybe that's just a good question to ask yourself when you're using it before you just automatically enter into it, is like, should I be doing this? And think critically about it before you do.
Have a great day.
It was interesting. That was good. I wasn't really exactly sure where that was going to go, It stays really high level, and I was like, don't say how to use it. Like, don't get into that, because we'll get into this episode. So it's going to be interesting to transition now into the next one of like how should you use it. It's kind of an assumption that okay, maybe it's like if you've decided you're going to use it, here's how.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, didn't really answer the question, which is fine. We just sort of posed the question.
Yeah, there's a level of, so part of what goes on I think we're more aware of. I mean, and actually, older Gen Z is really doing, young millennials, or I guess maybe would they be old millennials? No, they'd be young millennials. I guess I don't know. Anyway, that are
some people.
I'm trying to think of like I'm
Somebody.
thinking like 25 to 35, that age group are now doing analog parties,
And people are giving their kids not mobile phones but landlines.
I
just saw this. Yeah, same kind of thing.
Yeah. And a lot of the reason I think is because you get we are now way more aware that the screen time thing is a problem, and the studies are they're unarguable, like study after study of all this anxiety and depressions that's coming, and from people essentially spending time, and they're really spending time alone, like, which implies like that there just is a certain amount, I don't know about amount, but there's certain kind of quantity or quality of your day that needs to be with actual people. And the younger folks are getting anxious just being around people.
Right.
Can you imagine like going to, do you remember like as a kid you'd go knock on your friend's door and be like, can Johnny come out and play?
Yeah.
Which meant like 45 things. Is Johnny there? Is Johnny allowed to? Is he in trouble? Does he have anything there? Is he sick? And then mom would be like, yeah, come on in. Because it'd be like, and then if you realized all at once, well, I don't really want to go in. I was like, well, can he come outside? Because we're leaving on our bikes to go to the Minute Market. Like, I don't want to come inside.
Yeah.
There's just all this like, it's so
Social
much.
stuff
That like now, and that would happen at like 5 years old. I can't imagine a 5 or 6 year old going over to their friend's house. They'd freak out.
Well, just knocking on the door, first of all.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Or even calling, and like, what am I going to say? Can I even call? Like, do they even have a phone? All these other questions.
Yeah.
So different.
Anyway, yeah.